see. Good. If there's any new people for the class, I think there's an Erasmus student said that they were going to sign up, and I wasn't sure they're going to be here today or not. Anyone who was not here last week, and I have a copy of the syllabus up here, so they can come and get it when they leave. Again, for this class, everything is kind of spelled out on the syllabus. Okay, sometimes some of my other classes, since campus is mostly just a depository for things, and also for assignments, uploading of assignments. Here, because this class is going to be with quizzes, so I don't upload quizzes. I mean, I give them to you. I print them and give them to you, and you give them to me. We had an argument yesterday with the faculty about because of, we're supposed to keep quizzes. I said, that's stupid. We have to keep copies of everything, exams and things for things. I understand written final exams, we have to keep them for these 5 years, but thank God I asked students to put their papers and term papers on the system, right? So therefore, there's a record of it on the system, on campus. So I'd hate to have to physically keep copies of papers, because if I give you comments back in papers, I have to make copies of your copies of papers. That's so stupid. So for this class, the only physical record that probably I will keep will be the final exam. Okay. I will show you. You can come if you have a problem with the final. I can show you the final, but I have to keep the final exam. I think that's going to be the rule now for most of the written final exams. And the final exam will happen because it will happen during the exam week. There's no 15 sessions, so I'm going to use my right to have it on during the exam session. We'll have it probably on the June 20th. This is same time, same place, same room. Okay, same day, same room. I don't think there's going to be a scheduled exam on that same day. If there is, maybe I'll then postpone postpone it a week after, if that's the case. If there is an exam, if I find there's an exam scheduled for this day at noon or something, I will look it for the next week. Okay, but I will try to keep it on this day, on the 20th. Otherwise, it'll be on the 27th. And I don't expect it to happen. Because you have like 3 lectures this semester? 3 lectures this semester? Or 4? 5? No. Lectures.
Lectures, 3.
3, exactly. So lecture 3, there's going to be 3 lectures, and therefore you have 3 scheduled formal exams. Okay, that's how it works usually. Because last semester you had 4, right? 4 or 5, right? You had what?
I think we have 3 now. Last semester it was something about 5.
Yeah, 5. It was 5 last semester, 3 next semester. I think 2 next semester, and there's 1 in the you have that thing course like that. So therefore, that is the structure of the exams. Again, all the reading is in the campus, so you have access to campus. All the readings are downloadable, and usually they're even hooked up, like today's reading here is even hooked up through the link here, okay? So that not only do you have the course reading, the required reading general, an archive of all of the reading right here, but except for some problems, the reading is also clickable through the link here. You just go here and it'll give you directly, it'll download the damn paper for you, in fact, sometimes. Okay, see how it works in that sense, the platform? In case I'm recording classes, so therefore you're not recorded, but I am. So the thing about this is I have it. So if someone misses a week, I'm going to basically if someone's absent or something like that, can do it. But I also have a previous year of the course that was saved and available The link is available here, so if people want to, like, if they want to compare what I did for this year to that year, you can go do that. And also, I had some videos that I did on. There's additional videos on basically four videos, which deal with the question of what I call the things some of the topics we're going to be doing today and next week, which deals with what we call basically four of the themes today. Themes of today's things: political rule versus economic rule versus despotic rule, family, household nature, the social structures of things. And the next week, it will is the thing on the political form, the polis versus the state, which we'll go into that. So not today, but when we go there. So they're there for those of you who wish to kind of use them. They're not required in that sense, but they're useful. And those of you who will miss a class can ask for the copy of the link to the recorded thing. So okay, that's that. There are technically, let me see, what does Usus tell us today? Magic Usus on the wall. Usus tells us today that there are 21 students because of the Erasmus student that was added to the program. So hopefully we'll have 21 students. It's a little shy for 21, but we'll see. The sign-up sheet is going around, so please make sure you sign it. And when it's done, please have someone bring it up. Today's topic. Well, let's look at today's topic. Basically, the household tribe, as the syllabus says, household tribe, empire versus the political community. So this leads us to the question. I mean, the readings were from. I asked you to look at chapter 1 of the my chapter 1 on my Centrality of the Regime, which deals with the question of the household, right, and the rise of the household and the polis, and basically in terms of mythology, the origin of in the Greek understanding of the origins of the household through the famous play of Aeschylus, the trilogy of Aeschylus actually, the Oresteia, which gives the origin, explains the pre-political world versus the political world, and the role of family justice by family vengeance versus the rise of political justice. And this is actually an interesting. The reason I give that chapter is the origin of the political world, which is actually the last part of today's theme, because that's the origin. That's but it shows the tension between, let's say, the familiar or the family or the paternal life versus political life. Okay, and then the other reading was from Aristotle's Book 1, the Politics, Book 1, which deals with the household. It starts out, well, he gives the first one, he gives the anthropological argument, and the first chapter and second chapter deals with kind of a political anthropology. He makes the claim that the city is by nature, and those who argue that there's no difference between, let's say, a household, a master of slaves, a head of a household, or a manager of a household, oikonomikos. That's where we get the word economics from oikonomikos, which means economic household management. Oikos nomos. Okay, the kind of norms of the oikos. But then we change it. We drop the oi. The English got rid of the o, and you got economics, right? In fact, that's the origins of economics. Economics was the management of households or estates. Okay, that's where economics emerges. We then look at as we mentioned last week when we talked about the origins of political man in terms of anthropology, the idea of people emerging out of ethnic identities and kin group, family-based kin group selection structures that then evolve, that grow over time and become tribes and peoples or nations. Okay, so that this structure, and then empires. That's another thing. So Weber, two of the readings I will read, chapter 4 of Walters and Walters. Walters and Walters is basically Weber. It's basically a book by them which has a selection of writings from Max Weber's. Let me see. Let's just download it. It's be easier. It is just easier. This and chapter 4 deals with the question of within the distribution of power within Gemeinschaft, and Gemeinschaft is it's the German word for community, or within a community. Okay, and therefore classes. Now Stand, that's a German word that would mean. That's a tough word in German. That's why he leaves it in German, not English, because castes. Okay, classes, castes, and parties. Okay, and structures of here. And that's a very interesting. In other words, the distribution of powers. In other words, we're talking about a little bit of what power means in that sense within a community, and then how classes, castes, and parties play a role in shaping the different societies and different forms of community in that sense. And then the last thing we will look at in that sense will be Weber's famous. Instead of using the very brief account of this in his Munich lecture, The Vocation of Politics, which is a very great lecture, but it's also the section I want to talk about. It is, I will use elements of the Weber thing when I get the Vocation of Politics lecture is more useful when you talk about state, but when you're talking about this, okay, it's not there. Okay, that's gonna be the pain. Okay, hold on. I have to go here. See, that's what sometimes the links are kind of like crazy. Where is this? That's why you have to sometimes. And this is a chapter from a new translation of Max Weber's Economy and Society, which only has the first part, okay, which is the original book from the. Therefore, this is that in 1960, Weber, just as he died, was writing a book, Economy and Society. He dies like in 1919 of basically, as those of us who went through the COVID world should remember, COVID was nice compared to what happened in 1916 to 1920 with the influenza, the Spanish flu, which killed hundreds of millions of people worldwide. We don't even know the full extent of it. In Europe alone, it killed over 30 million. And Weber was one of Max Weber died in his mid to late 50s. So at the peak of his career, that he could have done more. Weber, one of the last things he did was the 1919 Munich lectures, and then within the year he dies of influenza. He was always a sickly person anyway, so therefore that's that's one of the But his wife continued and published this, and then republished all his. He had like two other works that were ready to work: a book on cities that she then 10 years later, not 10 years, 26. She published it in 23, 24 separately, and then when they did a collected edition of this in 26, 28, they put together in 1960. The second edition came out in German, where they mixed it and they had 2 volumes. The University of California in the 1968 published the first actually, it's a weird translation. There's like 5 or 6 different translators. Weber is always a bastard to translate, because what happened was Weber, the early translations of Weber in English were done by the Chicago School, people, Talcum Parsons and other people of the Chicago School of Sociology, which were kind of behavioralists and structuralists. And although they claimed to be following the positivistic tradition of Weber, Weber have already broken away from the positivist tradition and was going in a different direction. One influenced by Nietzsche more. Whereas, therefore, when they translated Weber the translations of the 1940s and 50s and even 60s of Weber tended to interpret it in terms of behavioralism and having a deaf ear to the Nietzsche, the reference to Nietzsche in it. It was only during basically the late 1970s, a bunch of German scholars said, "Hey, this interpretation of Weber is wrong." He was kind of rebelling against the positivism a little bit, and therefore by the 1980s and 90s there began new translations. So therefore there's a big fight. Many traditional translations before 1980 tended to be more influenced by behavioral readings. This is why there's been criticism of the 1968 and actually even the 2004 revision of the so-called second edition of the University California Press 2-volume set that was done in 2004. Corrections and modernizations, but still keeping the translations, the older translations. Okay, and what's so interesting is some translation, yes, they're better than the original, the first translation of Economy and Society done by Talcott Parsons and someone else in 1954. The 1960 edition was much better, but it still was missed a lot. The only thing that was, you could say, that saved what the second volume was much better and more coherently translated than the first. This is why this translator, the person who I'm relying on here, from this edition by Harvard University Press, the translator is basically trying to do this. He became a scholar, a German translator of German stuff, medieval literature, medieval economics literature, and therefore he decided Keith. What's his last name? I can't remember. Keith. I don't know. I think his first last name is Keith. In fact, he ironically, even though Harvard University would publish it, he had to basically pay for most of the editing of the book himself. So therefore, this is like a level because there's not much money for translations. There's not much money for research for people who do translations. So this is I picked this edition because it's exactly like how Weber wanted it. It's how he left it, fragmental and things. And what I'm doing, why I mentioned this is because this is Weber's magnum opus. This was going to be his magnum opus that he never really got. He got the basic structure of it done, so it's a book in fragment. He wasn't going to add anything. He was just going to kind of give me more examples and flush out some of the arguments. So therefore, it's 80% done. Okay, the book is 80% done as it is, and the wife and only added about some corrections. So it wasn't any, and by corrections, just grammatical corrections and structural corrections, not any content changing. Okay, and the editors tried not to do that. What happened was in the later English translation, the translators did do that. They added a lot to it. They added, and that's why there's criticisms of the English translations, and that is because they added a lot. They interpreted a lot. They said, "Oh, there's something's missing here. I know what they're going to say. This is what he would say." Okay, because there's jumps here. Now, why I mention the forms of rule is because the forms of rule is his understanding of, Herrenschaft, the German word. Okay, I'm going to use foreign words because because authors, when they use words, have certain words. The closest meaning of this, Herrenschaft, is rule, or it means lordship. It can be lordship, but lordship sounds funny. The actual word he's trying to look at in Greek would have been arche, to rule. The arche, to rule, to govern. Okay, and the kairos, that is to command. Kyros can be translated as commanding, or it also can be translated as, from English, as authority. Now, some translators have argued this means sovereignty, but sovereignty is another bugbear, which we're going to be struggling with. What does sovereignty mean? This is one of the big questions. What does sovereignty mean? Where does it come from? Does it find its origin in the Greek and Latin? You have to understand, not all the terms we use have their origins in the Greek and Latin world. Some do. Others are later, medieval, and actually most, like even words like state and society, particularly how we use society today, these are constructs of the modern world. And to speak of a Greek state, or a Roman state, or a Chinese state back at the time of the Chinese Empire, right? You go back into 10th century, 7th century, and talk about the traditional dynastic rules in China as a state, right? This is anachronistic. We can do it. In other words, we can use. See, it's all right for ordinary speech to be sloppy. Okay? In ordinary speech, we often give words, particularly in English, greater flexibility. Okay? That's one of the things about English in that sense. The English language, what it did, because it borrowed so many words from different languages, because remember, English is a mutt language. It is a hybrid of Indo-European, but also different branches of Indo-European. You have not only Celtic, but the original Celtic things, but the Angles and Saxons. So that's where English comes from, Angles and Saxons. And then what you get is early Britain, then more Saxon influence, then the Normans who are Frenchified, and they bring French. They adopt French, and they conquer England, and they impose French language, and then the Latinate structures. Now you had an earlier Latin invasion, Roman invasion, so you had two Latin invasions. You had a Roman Latin invasion that brought Latin, and then a Norman invasion which brought French, and French is a Latin language in that sense. So therefore you had this structure. And English, as we understand it, emerges around the 12th, 13th century. The first real English writer, because I mean you can find 10th century English works, but they're all written in Latin. The most important English political theory work is Bracton's The Constitution of England, the laws in the Constitution of England. It's Latin. Okay. The first English work of writing is Chaucer. And even Chaucer, try to read Chaucer in original, it's like alien speak, okay? The next major link, see, therefore languages and construction of languages and the emergence of this creates national. So language and how language evolves is also important to what we understand as ethnic identity, and also the way we understand the world. This is another thing. The way we can work in mathematical objects and space, time, and things like that, but we also construct ideas and things in language. And therefore, the particular languages we originally use, how we define things, mean specific things. The problem is when you meet other people talking about the same different things, interlanguage use, and particularly with ideas, political ideas, sometimes we're not inventing them themselves. They come from somebody else, and they come from a different term. Like the Greek word arche, to rule. It means the beginning, to begin, the starting point. Okay, and also to rule. That's why we say the ruler, the early rulers were called archons. Right? This is that aspect of this. And it is with Greek culture, the European consciousness, particularly with the beginning of political forms, of the political. Political rule is an invention of the Greeks. It occurs around the 6th century BC because of a complete collapsing of an empire. Is it the Phoenician Empire? Something happened. Some 8th century, 9th century, some disaster happens, a great flood. Everyone, archaeologists, okay. We know that the Black Sea was at one time a freshwater sea. And what happened was the Mediterranean eroded the land boundary between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Today is called the Dardanelles, right? What happened was something happened that basically had the Mediterranean flood the Black Sea. Now the argument is that what happened was the landmass between Africa and because remember all the plates on the Earth are moving. In a million years, Africa won't be Africa anymore. There'll be two continents. Half of the northern quarter of Africa will separate because there's two plates and they're diverging from each other. And very soon, what we think is the Congo, Sudan, and that, they're going to have another ocean between them. In about 800,000 to, it's already starting. The cracks are starting already. So therefore, the Earth as we know it is constantly moving and shaping. The continents move. So what happened was that some kind of event led the mouth of the mouth of the Mediterranean to the Atlantic opened wider and more ocean flooded. It rose the water level of the Mediterranean. And we know that by evidence on the Mediterranean coast. And then it flooded the Black Sea. And we know that because in certain parts of the Black Sea, you can go down and find 10th century buildings underneath the water. On the coast, within about a half a kilometer from the coast, existing coast. So there was there was a multi-ethnic empire at one time there that was completely lost. That was overcome and destroyed. We know this. This is what anthropology tells us. This is the origins of this. And that the Phoenicians, most likely, because the Phoenicians do survive, and the Phoenicians aren't the Palestinians. The largest Phoenician settlement was a place it's called Carthage, which is around North Africa, where Tunis is. And it was a very powerful city all through the Middle Ages until the Romans around, was it 2nd century BC exterminates it. That's the famous line, to salt the earth. They salted all of all the land around North Africa. That area around Tunis was completely depopulated by destroying the agriculture. What is that line? As Tacitus says, we created a desert and called it peace. The Roman solution to a problem, which I support. You don't build nations. What is that line from Machiavelli? The best way that you can go there and occupy it. You can send troops to go someplace to occupy it. A famous line of the Prince says, "You can send colonies. You can send keep your soldiers there, or you can send colonists. All three of those end up a disaster. The best way, and the Romans discovered how to keep a province always, destroy it. And that's even what happened to places like Corinth. Greece, parts of the Greek cities that were at first time peaceful and nice for the Romans, but they kept on rebelling. So what did the Romans do to the most troublesome cities? They just enslaved the population and exterminated the location so they couldn't survive anymore. So there's only ruins. Okay. That's the Roman way. And the Romans only will, and this is an empire. But this is not an empire of the first variety, which we'll talk about. It's a post-political empire. The Romans will be emerging after the rise of the cities. The first cities are these what happens? There was a Phoenician empire that died. And what empires do? Empires basically integrate different populations. One tribe, either a band of warriors or leading a tribe, or a bunch of warriors, maybe multi-ethnic war, different tribes, conquers a whole bunch of tribes. And what do? They interpenetrate. They force the populations to mix and interpenetrate. So what happens when the empire collapses? Well, the old ethnic identities, the old tribal identities, reemerge to reassert themselves. Because what holds the empire together will be force, coercion, conquest, the sword. Yes, they'll try holding it together with economics, and they'll create things like religion, language. It's these conquering rulers that create written language, create organized religion. No, let's go back over here. Let's go to the my thing, and let's go backwards. I was going to do that, but I'm going to. If the unit of corporation is empire, that's the highest level of corporation. But empire owes its origins to conquest. So let's go look at what I was going to try to do. We're going to start from the lowest to the highest, right? The units of organization. Now, the household. This is basically the smallest complex unit there is in human associations. The first relationship is the sexual pairing. That's the procreative. Or what is the word Locke? Locke in the second treatise in chapter 11 calls it the conjugal. Conjugal. There was that word conjugate, right? The conjugate is to put together. Conjugal usually means, one sex, the male meeting the female to procreate. That's conjugal. Conjugal relations. Conjugal association is the origin of the male, and this is based on Aristotle. He even says in book 2, talks about there's two forms of kind of interrelations why people depend on each other. Associations. This is why you have people come together to form a common. First is the reproductive, male and female to reproduce. Why? Because this is your species. This is your genes and your species driving your behavior. Now, of course, you can still say, I don't want to. I don't want to. Humans are free enough to fight their instinct. Now, the question is, maybe they're designed to. Maybe they know they should not reproduce. Okay? Maybe your genes say, I don't see anything useful over there, so I'm not. That would drive pheromones. Pheromones, your sexual attraction, as we know by biochemical studies and things like this, is what sexual selection is. This idea for sexual attraction is tied to pheromones. You're attracted to the people who have the genes you lack. Therefore, this is the biology of human association. We know this. We're animals in the sense. We're biological animals. One of our mechanisms, however, that differentiates us from other animals is language, which is what? Language is constructed logical sounds, and therefore the use of the tool of reasoning. Okay, it's not that we're rational. We have the capacity to use reason. And language is a construct that reason operates in. That we use rational things to measure, to evaluate, to argue, to communicate, to persuade. So not only can we just carrots and sticks, offer rewards like this, but we also can persuade. Okay? And this allows for this is persuasion and utility is the bound of voluntary associations. The voluntary versus the involuntary. Voluntary means that you can choose. You choose. Involuntary means that you have no control. It's something that something compels you. Either your desires, your passions, your physiological needs, or other people, external forces. So the household, koinonia, the word koinonia means the community. We translate it as community, or you translate in German as Gemeinschaft. It's Greek koinonia, often Latin communitas. English we would translate as community. The Germans Gemeinschaft. What is done here with this? This is a community. Is this common? This thing. It's from the word konon, common. It is something we share in common with each other. It is a bond or thing we share. So therefore, it is what? It is a dynamic relationship. It goes, and we'll talk about this. But the household itself is the kind of unit. It's an aggregate unit. It's an aggregate union of 4 different multiple relationships. Multiple. In other words, what's so interesting about the oikos, or the household, is it is not one relation. It is a multiple. It's a variety of relations in it. The first relation is the husband-wife relation. I'm sorry, it's a husband-wife. Not husband-husband, not wife-wife. Why is this the case? Production, it's for the purpose of procreation in the sense. That's the purpose, that is the natural structure of the animal section. This is how animals do. And the human animal, because the human animal child does not mature. Some children, in other words, some animals, once the child is born, they have all the capacity they need and don't need any care, and they can go do things, right? Like sea turtles. Once the egg is hatched, the turtle is able to go, they go to the sea, and they're able to fence for food on themselves. The parent doesn't necessarily have to give any real care to them. Human children are usually helpless till around 3 to 5 years of age. Maybe even 6. So therefore, the female who carries them for the time of gestation and before birth, for the period that they do, they're vulnerable. And then therefore they're bound to them. The fact that biology gives them the nature of biological relations hits them with chemicals that make them want to care for their kid, right? So they have to spend like 5 to 6 years providing for the child, making sure the child survives. And we know that male and females have different sexual strategies, because men just simply impregnate and don't give birth. Women give birth. So the economic cost of reproduction is higher for the women than the male. So therefore the male strategy is impregnate a lot, go around. That would be the optimal male strategy. But this imposes a very high negative cost on women. And the children are not likely to. Therefore, it's a lottery. This strategy, the male strategy, is a statistical one, hoping on great numbers, and therefore maybe 5% survive. The female strategy is since they're stuck with it for so long, they need to have male investment in it. They need to have the male commit to the relationship, commit to the child and care for the child. Hence the social construct of romantic love. Romantic love is a construct created to benefit women for the purposes of maintaining male fidelity to the relationship. So that what? So the child, in other words, someone is investing in it. There's care and investment into it. So this is the nature of human evolutionary structures. That is the first relationship. The husband. Now, what Aristotle argues, and other people argue, is there's something echoing politics in the relation of man and woman, or husband and wife. Why? Because this is a thing of choice. The relationship, first of all, okay, some terms, heterogeneous means what? Generous means together. It means diverse, right? We say heterogenesis or hetero. Okay, I'm using my English. I've been here too long, and don't use it a lot. Homogeneity versus heterogeneity. Hetero means same. Everyone's the same. A heterogeneous structure is everyone is the same. High levels of similarity. Heterogeneous structure is a diverse structure. Okay. So husband and wives tend to be what? Heterogeneous, very much heterogeneous. Why? Because male, female, differential. Second of all, you don't marry people with your same genes because you don't get benefit from this. Also, interbreeding of people with the same genetic code, often, in other words, inbreeding of people with the same genetic code within 2 generations produces errors, that produces mental defects. Reproducing of the same, this is why cloning probably won't work, because the same gene that keeps on copying itself, right, into itself over and over again will automatically generate defects at a higher rate than a diverse gene pool set. And what happens in the first level of mitosis and second level of mitosis is the 2 strands of the RNA separate and they bump with other ones and they keep on doing this process. Some of it, the first level of mitosis, we lose it from skin, the skin falls off, We don't have the same, in a 72 hours, the matter you are possessed with has left your body already. Your matter is changing every day. The cellular level, your matter is not the same, identically same matter that it was 72 hours ago. Okay? You're leaving about thousands of bits of your cellular. Every day you go and do everything you do, you're leaving little bits of yourself. Cells. You go to the bathroom. What do you think you're doing? You're excreting waste, but that waste is what? Products are also carrying in you the dead cells that you are, or the cells that are being extracted in mitosis. First level mitosis. Second level mitosis is sexual. Okay, and that is what happens when we have sexual intercourse. The two different processes are sending codes, which contains the element of this, and then you get a situation, the two RNA codes, the RNA strands, that they meet each other, and then voila, the 2 different RNA structure, the codes of the 2 sides connect together. And it's basically a statistical outcome of who's, in other words, your family ancestry. You are all the genes, in you are all the genes of your ancestors. So when you mate, what happens is your genes and their genes mix together, and the person who comes out of that by birth from that will be whatever is the best statistical outcome of terms of, not the best, but the one that is more likely to occur from the different varieties of different codes will produce it. Now, why am I talking about this in this sense? Because you have to understand the biological dimension to the human to understand why this happens. Then the next level, childbirth, therefore parental-child relationship. Parent-child relationship. By the way, this is heterogeneous, right? Your child is yours, of your same genes. So therefore the relationship is, notice this, that the parent-child relationship is different from the husband-wife relationship. Why? One, it's the husband-wife relationship is a relationship of difference, and it requires some level of voluntariness. The level of actually, it's preferable that is high levels of voluntariness. Involuntary relationships don't last at that level. Wholly involuntary relationships, there has to be either some interest or utility. Usually, if the interest is only the child, then the relationship will last only as long as the child care is necessary. So there has to be some bond, some aspect of interest beyond simply just coercion and power to keep the connection between husband and wife, to prolong the relationship. So conjugal relationship is this not enough. That's why Locke's term of it is kind of dubious in that sense, the conjugal association. Parent-child relationship is what? It's within usually both within a single generation and intergenerational. Now this forms a parental rule. So if husband and wife is a form of equals, right? Rules of equals. And it's by equals, it does not mean there's going to be pure equality. Usually what will happen is there'll be one level, something will happen. And that is because generally the male will tend to have, because of genetics and certain things, more aggression than women. Because of levels of testosterone and other things. There'll be more aggression and more kind of ambition and things tied to a testosterone, okay, and other chemicals that are predominantly that tend to be higher in men than women, okay, and because of this, human convention usually, in other words, it's not that men naturally have authority over women; it's that the human conventions permit it usually because of the propensity of this, of that male having higher levels of aggression. There's a whole argument within the anthropology about why there is always, in other words, this is one thing. In human history, you will find no matriarchal societies. You will find matrilinear societies. That means the line of authority comes from the woman, but not matriarchal. And all the evidence that said there was matriarchal was a confusing of matriarchal and matrilineal. All human known associations. The term is maybe we haven't discovered it, right? There's some lost Amazon tribe that, the Amazons, right? Come on. All you kids who do cartoons, the Amazons, right? Come on. That's Greek mythology. The Amazons were a matriarchal all-woman society. The images of the Amazons, Wonder Woman, right? From... not the new Wonder Woman, but the original Wonder Woman from the cartoons of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. The modern Wonder Woman makes her Greek gods. Okay, that's the irony of how our modern mythos and comic book world has to recreate and rewrite the older traditions. So why is this important to understand? Is that the difference here is that you have the husband and wife relationship, voluntary. There is a voluntary equal relationship, and that echoes the political. See, what we will eventually call political will be equal and open to heterogeneous relationships. In other words, a political relationship, a political community can be either homogeneous or heterogeneous. It will also have elements it will be more voluntary than involuntary, okay? The next relationship, if parental-child is both single generation and intergenerational, therefore the grandchildren and the great cares on it, the next one is sibling-to-sibling, cousin-to-cousin relationships. In other words, there is this, the brothers all working together. Uncles, in other words, cousin. cousin, sibling, cousin bonding structures. You often see this in tribal relationships, but you also see this in agricultural society, where the different branches of the family will kind of govern themselves not with a patriarch, one patriarch, but maybe there was one patriarch, but then several generations later, basically the brothers and uncles now are kind of a broader entity. And this explains why the development of early rule started with kingship, one ruler, right? Usually a patriarch ruling over a tribe. As the tribe grew and bifurcated and differentiated, what ended up happening is that instead of one, it became few rulers, and then as the organization got larger, those who participated in deciding and making decisions increased. Because why? Because as the family structure grew and the brothers and cousins and the network grew larger, in other words, the authority of the single patriarch is no longer as strong as now the relationships and bonds of brothers and cousins. Okay, you understand this aspect? So therefore, this is the next level within a household: the brothers and sister connection, the sibling, cousin. And next, this is the most complex, the other in the household. The Greek word is delos. This is the problem. It can mean slave or servant. Or it can also mean serf. Anyone who says that Russians did not have Eastern European peoples did not have slaves, I'm sorry, they were called serfs. They were as much slaves as American slaves. In fact, a professor friend of mine in 1987 got in lots of trouble when he said, if you look at the reality of American slavery in the American South, and you compared it to the life of the Russian serf, the Russian serf would look at the American slavery as heaven. This is the problem with our attempts to understand things like slavery, is the failure to understand the different structural relationships that existed in time. Serfdom could be perceived as more, in other words, ironically, why? Because I hate to say it, the chattel slave was a capital investment. The serf was not. Did masters ever care about serfs? Hell no. They were just a pain. They were just things they were stuck with the land. Therefore, they most likely exploited them and didn't use them, but not cared with them. They had no value to them. They couldn't sell them. Therefore, it had no value to them. A chattel slave in the American market had great value. So does a rational person destroy the thing that has value to them? Think about that. You understand? Rational. If this is a valuable commodity that people are willing to pay very high, as by the time of the Civil War, the slave value was much higher because what? No more importation of slaves. And the only way you had new slaves is by them having children, and they tended not to have. The slaves tended not to produce children because they didn't want to. Many of them would kill their children rather than grow up as slaves. So therefore there was not an increasing supply of slaves, and the demand when cotton came into being, an increased demand. So what happens when demand increases but supply stays the same or remains constant? What is the cost to happen? The cost value? It increases. So are you going to? You care for your investment? People tend to. I mean, if you care for your investment, you invest in it. Of course, it's doing labor for you and doing work for you. Yes, that's the purpose of it, right? but it is at the same time, it is a commodity. It has value. The serf does not. The serf could not be sold. The land could be sold, but the serfs go with the land. And the problem with that was that a lot of times you're stuck with these people that you didn't want the land for. In fact, what's the only thing that saved Western Europe and why Eastern Europe had problems with development. In Western Europe, the peasants of Western Europe were not serfs. They weren't slaves to the land in the same way that the Eastern Europeans were. Therefore, what happened when it became when the agricultural revolution happened around the basically 11th century, 10th, 11th century, you didn't want serfs making lands. You wanted yeomans who would rent land from you, who would then make a profit. You'd rent the land to the instead of the serfs. Instead of the serfs and the peasants were doing the land and taking 20% from them, you would take a set fee from a yeoman who then would make as much money as possible and make profit based on family, kin relationships, and also hiring laborers. Okay? This leads to more productive agriculture. The agricultural revolution, the first level of agricultural revolution happened around 10th century, 12th century. The second one happened in the 16th, 17th century, and then the third one happened in the 19th, 20th century with the introduction of technology. Advanced technology. And now that we're going into the fourth one, well, it's still there. It's genetics. Come on. Have you been to Western? Have any of you seen today's wheat plants? Go watch wheat. Wheat plants, natural wheat plants, old wheat plants of 30 years ago were this high. Single stalk of thing would be about this high. Today, it's no higher than that. And one of these are like 10 of these. And if anyone says, well, but this is bioengineering and we shouldn't be, I'm sorry, we've been, bioevolution of, I hate to say it, genetic manipulation has been going on since the second we cross-pollinate anything. We've been genetically modifying animals for as long as we've been breeding animals. What do you think the horse is? It's a genetically modified thing. The cow. The mule. The ass. Human beings have been genetically modifying things. Now they've been doing it accidentally and not with bad precision, with relying a lot on luck and chance, right? But they've been doing it. Now what today's technology does is only gives us more precision and more accuracy. Now this can be bad. I mean, one of the things, there's a problem with this on human level. IVF is a very dangerous thing. Why? I mean, we know that IVF treatments have basically a 20-30% higher risk of having a child with defects. Their offspring will have some genetic flaw or defect. Not because of IVF, because we don't have the knowledge. In other words, sexual selection, evolution is the survival of when it's happening naturally, it is a Darwinian survival of the fittest. The gene that in the process of the egg and the sperm and the egg meeting, it is basically 20 million seeds go out there, but only one gets to do the thing, right? One. So therefore, statistically, the one that gets it has to be the one who's able to survive the hostile environment, the external hostile environment of the process. When the medical doctor looks for the thing, he says, what do? They pick the one that moves most. How do you know the one that moves most is the gene set that has the genes that are best for it? We don't. So therefore, there's an irony here. At one level, we can do things. This is just because we can do it doesn't mean. The question is, do we? I mean, this is the famous line that even the nuclear scientist says. We know we can manipulate the atom. We can manipulate the atomic structures and subatomic structures. But do we really know what's going on at the subatomic level? Nope. In fact, this is the problem of the uncertainty theorem of Heisenberg, right? We don't have no clue what's going on in the subatomic. The rules of at the atomic level and the rules at the subatomic level and the quantum level are completely different. We know they're different, but do we really know them? No. Why? Because what is the Heisenberg thesis says? The second you observe something in quantum space, you can't tell whether you're affecting it or not. In other words, just the second you observe it, you're interacting with it and you're altering what it was doing then. So you don't know what it's doing. And the second you interact with it, it's no longer doing what it was. You cannot know whether it's doing something because of your interaction, or is it still doing the thing it was doing before? And by the way, this is a problem in observation and science too. When if people know you're observing things, do they change their behavior? Do you understand? So if someone is observing a thing, people's behavior changes. Opinion polls. When someone comes up to you, when you give you an opinion poll, trust me, who's asking you questions will change the way you answer questions. This was one of the great problems of the sex surveys of the 1960s and 70s, the Kinsey report, and those things. Because why? Because they often had young college students asking young people, and therefore young people were bragging to each other, both male and female. Therefore, when the famous Chicago study came out, when they hired all these old grandmas to ask the questions, all of a sudden the Chicago University sexual survey showed the worst. It actually showed that, well, you know who has the most satisfying sex? Married Christians. That's the 1998 to 2002, the Chicago survey. Go watch it. The book is called Sex in America. It's in our library. And it has shocking things. That who has the most sex? Married people. Who has the most satisfying sex? Fundamentalist Christians and Mormons. This is what the survey said. And every time they try to replicate the survey, it proves them right. It keeps on showing up the same. Now, so therefore, this is what we think we know versus what we do actually know. It's a different. It's how do you observe it? Now, the question is, the criticism even of that. Well, why are you using old ladies? Well, the answer is you get more conservative results. People are going to brag. Young men are not going to be bragging as much to an old lady as a grandma as they would brag to a young man, to a young person, or even a young girl. And girls is likewise. So therefore, you don't get exaggerated, you get more probably lower levels. So how do you control it? You then take samples of the same people from a young person giving the thing and the older person giving the thing, and what do? You average out the mean. Because you have an exaggeration here, you have a conservative bias here. This is why in polling systems, it's always good to get a range of polls and aggregate the polls. any kind of survey. Aggregated data is always better for this purpose. Why? Because it will allow you to control for bias. Once you understand the biases of the polls, you then counter one bias with another bias, and then you balance out the control. So therefore, this is so the master-slave relationship. This leads us to the aspects of this. Now, to understand a lot of things about human development, European political life, in this sense, is a product of feudal, the collapse of a Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire collapses, and therefore the feudal structures emerge, and then therefore, what is the surviving units? Families and tribes, households. So the household, in many ways, the feudal world, in other words, the feudal world often was a relationship of different households or estates. Family. That's why the ancient regime and the older world of the feudal Europe was family mattered all. Family connections, family ties meant property, meant value. And that therefore it was these relationships of family. This is aristocratic society. Aristocratic society are those families who had land and had access towards it and used it and was able to give status. And their interaction. Come on, this is how mobs work. Go look at the mafia, the dons and the families, right? They are families. They're family connected, loyalty structures. And who becomes the big boss? If you look at early monarchical things in Europe, it wasn't because one guy king. Now, this is the difference between empire and feudal European monarchs. Yes, warlords did emerge and help grow things bigger, but they were usually within the network of what? Families, established families. And only people from in other words, they would only recognize a warrior or a successful warrior if he came from the right family. A warrior who did not come from a family, a recognized family, he might be a great warrior, but he would never be able to be the ruler. He could be adopted into a family and then treated as a son, and maybe the lie will be he's the son. Therefore, his authority will not come from himself, but from the family who takes him in. So the role of estates, in other words, if you look at the medieval world, it is an interconnection of households. And I have to understand even the polis is an interconnection of household. So therefore, this is the very first point that we talked about earlier. At Politics 1, Chapter 2, he says, there's two forms of reason we come together. Conjoining persons who cannot exist without one another. On the one hand, male and female for the sake of reproduction. And the other, now he uses the naturally ruling and ruled on account of self-preservation. And why do they cooperate? Ruler and ruled? This is the next line. If sexual reproduction is the first driving interest, the second one is the naturally ruling and ruled is tied to foresight and those who don't have foresight. What does foresight mean? Back there. What does foresight mean? Right there. Not behind you. Behind you. You. Yeah. Foresight. What does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Come on. For means take. You must have had some. You must have passed a certain level of English to be here. So for means what? Before. Sight means understanding, right? Sight means to know something. Foresight is judgment. We say foresight, judgment, not reason. We understand judgment as discerning, making knowledge, knowing things, right? Though the one who knows is able to know what is good and what is beneficial. You know what's beneficial, you know what's useful, what's good for you. The one who doesn't know what's good for him, beneficial. So who's ruling? Who should rule? Who should follow? Should the one who don't know rule? The one who does not know what is good or what is useful or beneficial or true? be the one who's in charge and rules? Or the one who knows should be the one who is in charge and have authority and make decisions? Come on.
I think the one who has authority.
But whose authority? The question is who should have authority? The one who knows or the one who doesn't know?
I think when the Western Roman Empire fell around 5th century, the tribal leaders established their kingdoms.
Yeah, but even within tribal societies, who tends to rule?
Well, the strongest one.
No, the strongest one is you're confusing something.
I mean, not the strongest in terms of physical strength, but I think also because.
Okay, strength means power means getting what you want, right? Power or even strength. The strength to do something means you have to be able to do something, right? You have to know how to do it.
Well, yes.
You have to know what you want.
So you also need to have the knowledge.
So therefore, without knowledge, you can't know you can't know how to get what you want, or even to know whether it's good or bad, useful or not useful. And do you think everyone really knows out there what is good and bad, useful and not useful? Okay.
Yes, I think yes. I think
everyone?
Yes.
Really?
Really.
So this is our democratic mindset. We believe everyone has the capacity. Really make this. Therefore, everyone should be perfectly healthy here. Is everyone perfectly healthy here?
No.
Because we all make choices that we like. We all make choices that we want. We all do things that are not good for us. Correct? So therefore, we are in error. We don't all choose.
Yeah.
You understand? That's the problem. This is the problem of virtue. Virtue means doing what is virtue. Does not mean being good. It means knowing what the right thing to do, the correct and useful, good thing to do at the moment. And this requires wisdom, reason, to know what is the good thing. So it's not only two things. To be virtuous, you have to not only know what the right thing to do is, the correct and right thing to do, but you have to also do it. And you have to do it in the right way, the right time, at the right moment. So therefore, being virtuous or being wise is actually very difficult. Very few people are really wise. Now the question is, but you're right. The question of who should rule. In other words, who is wise among us? That's we don't know. It's not obvious. Okay? Trust me, does a bee or an ant know who is the ruler? A bee or an ant? How in a bee community and an ant community, does everyone know who's the boss in charge?
I think yes.
Yes.
I think
Why?
The queen bee is like the biggest.
Not as the biggest. It's all chemicals. In other words, that the bee, everything, all communication
Isn't actually there a difference between the queen and the other?
Yes, it's chemical.
Okay.
And it becomes
but
20.
I mean like the physical.
Yeah, no, because what happens is
sure.
the chemistry alters her. That once the queen becomes the queen, the chemical structure alters, and what happens is that she becomes a little larger, or in that sense. But then also what happens is everyone knows the queen. There's no doubt that's the queen. Is there among human beings is there a same level of certainty about who's the naturally wise?
No.
See, that's the problem. The human problem is an epistemology problem. We should follow the wise, the one who knows. The natural ruler is the one who knows how to rule, knows what's good for us. And those of us who don't should are the natural ruled. There by nature there's ruler and ruled. But the problem is we don't know it. In other words, the natural ruler, all you guys, by the way, who benefits from the natural ruler ruling?
His family?
the natural ruler in terms of this is not family. This is just the idea. It's based on reason, the one who knows what's good and what's beneficial. Who benefits? The ruled benefits greatly. The ones who ruled benefit from because they don't know what's good for them. See, the ruler, the one who's wise knows what's good for him, so he will do what's good for him. But the ruled, the ones who are not wise, they don't know what's good for them. They will make mistakes and suffer because of it. So by submitting to the rule, the one who knows, they are better. But the problem, and therefore they benefit. So would you submit to someone if you were going to really benefit from it? Would you willingly submit to it?
Submit to the ruler?
Yeah. If you're going to actually benefit, your life will be better.
Is it a promise or?
No, it's a guarantee.
Yes, I will.
Exactly. Most rational people would, knowing that you would not, by your own ability, would not achieve to be able to live well or to achieve that level of satisfaction. But the problem here is, do you really know that?
No,
and are you sure? We don't know that, right?
Maybe I am the one that is fit to rule, not
this because of doubt, lack of knowledge. We don't know. It's an epistemological problem. Human political life is a problem of epistemology. And therefore, every group makes claims, we'll say. So let's look at this. This is therefore, even though the claim of foresight, knowledge, is a powerful claim, but the problem is, are you sure the ones who know are the ones who know? How certain are you? Are those who claim they are wise really wise? This is the famous Socratic, right? That's Socrates. Every Socratic dialogue is Socrates saying, I don't know. I know that I'm not wise. What is the Socratic ignorance? I know that I know that I don't know, right? That's right. So it's every Socratic dialogue is somebody is saying, I know something about justice, right? And he goes in there and says, well, what do you know? Tell me. And then he ends up destroying their argument, showing that they don't really know what they claim they know, right? So here's our units of cooperation. This is koinonia. Actually, it is the husband, wife, and then all of this is the structures of cooperation. But the koinonia starts us from the male-female relationship all the way to the human race at other large. Okay, that's the whole line. That's the koinonia. And the thing about this is, where does the human being achieve their fullness as human being? What level of koinonia? Where is that level? Where is that point in this thing we call koinonia between the husband-wife bond? It's too small. Even the household is too small. It can't deliver it is not. The Greek word is self-sufficient. Autarkos. It means, it's often translated as self-sufficient, but then what happens is, all of us Americans, study students, you read Emerson's self-sufficiency and you read it in an Emersonian way, and that's not how it's meant. It's not this autonomy idea. It's the idea is that you don't need anything external. You have enough resources. You have all the resources and things in order to live well. This is what this means. Any way of life deals with getting sustenance, right? The sustenance. The question of sustenance. The question of how do you live your life. The natural ways of life, and this is from Aristotle's Politics, Book 1, Chapter 8. These are the famous ones. The nomad, the hunter, the brigand, the fisher, and the hunter. These are the traditional natural ways of agriculture. These are natural ways of life. The ways of sustenance is how do you get your resource? How do you survive? How do you eat? How do you eat to keep the body? And how do you keep warm? How to sustain yourself? Right. This is the first element of. This is, by the way, the Greek word is prior, the means. And this is the difference between the wealthy and the poor. The wealthy are those with lots of means, right? And the poor are without any means. What is the only mean that the What is the only source of capital that a poor person has to? Because resources are capital. Land, wealth, resources from the earth, things that you make resources. Right? Those are capital. That's what capital means in the original sense. What is the only form of capital that a poor person has?
His body.
His body.
His hands to make.
But that's his body.
Yeah.
His hands, his arms, his ability. He sells, the person who sells his body to labor, and the Greek word for this is the benesoi. These are not slaves, not delos, but the free one, not who's a slave, who sells his body in order to labor, to make money, to live. This is the lowest. This is you're selling your body as labor, physical labor, in order to live. This is the means of things. Now the next level is money. Now this is a big thing. Money is money making. This is money is an artificial mechanism to allow for exchange. Exchange, people will always exchange. Why? I have something you want. And exchange is a voluntary way of getting it. That I have something you want, you have something I want, and we exchange. We talked about this a little before, that this is a voluntary structure and there must be equal benefit towards it. Okay? I have something you want, you have something we exchange. But the problem with this is, what about if you make houses and he makes shoes? One shoe is not a house and a shoe? For this change to be fair, work would have to be proportional. So what does money does? Money is a mechanism that allows us to make this exchange more efficient. But the problem with money is money can make money. And that's the point about this. And this is unnatural. In other words, money itself and trade, that is a natural outcome of the natural acquisition. Natural acquisition is like, digging, killing people, hunting, fishing, digging the earth, cultivating the land, herding animals, in other words, these things. In fact, even piracy, a brigand, piracy, hunting men is a natural. This is one of those ironies in the text that in other words, from a natural point of view, a kidnapper or a brigand or a pirate is engaging in a more natural form of acquisition than someone who is lending money. Lending money is completely artificial. Money making. This is dangerous. In fact, this is why the Midas story. Does anyone know what the Midas legend is? King Midas?
Midas, yes. Yeah. Does he turn everything into gold?
Yeah. What happens to him?
I don't remember.
He dies of starvation and loneliness.
Yeah, because he touched food.
Because he wanted everything he touches turned to gold. So Dionysus, the god of wine, but he's also a god of procreation, decided to give him his wish. So what happened? Try to eat gold. Try to eat gold sometime and see if you'll be able to live. Then what else happens? When his wife came to touch him, she turned to gold. His daughter came to touch his daughter, she turned to gold. So he could not have any intimacy or any human connection. He died alone and starved to death. This is the danger, that the desire for wealth, the unlimited desire for infinite wealth is why is this myth? Why is this there? Because there is something true about this in our nature. Human beings cannot, the unlimited desire for gain will destroy human life. The purpose of living is living well, not just survival. Yes, you have to survive, but you have to live well. Now, in our few minutes, we talked about anthropology last week, the hunter-gatherers, the shepherds, the agrarians. This is the human development trail we talked about last week, right? Just remember this. This is the hunter-gatherers and these things. All of this gives us the development of society in that sense. Now, this is why Weber's economy and society and the caste system is important. Weber, in his argument here, makes this idea of how do we organize things. And this is the one way. Now, if Aristotle argued it was reproductive this, so what legitimizes rule? Weber says, well, there's a threefold. There is this three sources of authority or lordship or rule. Customary and traditional. That means what are the customs were? What did we do before? What did our ancestors do? This is the customary. This is our tradition. Therefore, tradition and custom. Remember, law, origins of law, has this double meaning. The Greek word nomos means not only custom, unwritten custom law, but also written law. Okay. So therefore, for him, Weber, law has twofold dimensions of authority: customary, traditional and customary, but also written and therefore legal or rational. The rational. We do it because the reason tells us, or rational judgment tells this is beneficial. Customary told us, in other words, legal rationalistic conception is therefore this is what he says the difference between early primitive societies tend to be customary, and more modern societies will tend to be the level of rational. But then Weber then drops this nuclear bombshell. This nuclear bombshell is charisma. What is charisma? Charisma is a very powerful tool. It's attractiveness. And there's a problem with attractiveness. It's radically subjective. In other words, charisma is wholly in the eyes of the beholder. It makes you. It leads. The person. What is charismatic will differ. A charismatic person, by his behavior, actions, maybe even his words. See. Both custom and utility works on what someone would call, this is that famous term from, what's his name? Joseph Nye called the term soft power. Hard power, soft power. Hard power, and people always misunderstand, what is soft power? Hard power is carrots and sticks. Carrots, utility, benefit. I can benefit you, I can do it. I can give you rewards. I can give you benefits. I can give you inducements. There's something, you're going to get something. Some benefit, you choose it. Reward, utility, carrots. Sticks, threats, cudgels, and even physical coercion. Force. Those are hard power. So economics, what is that? Hard or soft power? Hard. Trade, hard. Inducements, right? Utility. So what's charisma? When he talks about Nye, we'll talk about soft power. I didn't have you read Nye, but many of you probably in a foreign policy course will hear this term, soft power. It means what? Attractiveness. You like the thing. There's something you like about it, and because you like it, you follow it. You do what it says, and actually, okay, remember, what power? Power means nothing more than getting what you want, or getting other people to do what you want, right? I can do this by hard power, that is, rewards and punishments, or persuasion. But charisma is a weird thing. It's you are attracted to me for some reason, or the person in question. Something about that person, what he does, what he says, or she says, or like this, has people saying, they're right. He's smart. Let's follow him, right? Charisma is a very powerful mechanism. It's irrational. It is often connected with religion and religiosity. Charisma is a construct by which a lot of times people say, "Oh, I come in. Do you know why people?" Okay, trust me. One of the biological constructs of charisma, I can tell you, physical features. People will follow ugly people. You will not follow you are more likely to height wins. We will constantly pick for leaders the person who's taller than the shorter person, unless the taller person is dumb and ugly. In other words, the negatives have to be it. We will have these height, attractiveness, so that these irrational, arbitrary, physical things, the voice, the tone, the way, one of the most powerful things of Hitler was his speech patterns. You know, in English it doesn't work. When English people listen to Hitler, they say, oh, they laugh at him, right? But in German language, Hitler's speeches are enticing, seductive, powerful. It's the rhythm of the language and the tone and the images that he conjures up are all rooted in the consciousness of being German. In other words, Hitler was a mirror. Hitler was not what's so interesting about a Hitler character is Hitler merely gave Germans what they wanted to hear. All their longings, all the longings of the Germanic history, of Germanic culture, from all the way back to the origins of Charlemagne and earlier, all innate German longings. And he just was a mirror. Their fears, their hatreds, reflected it back to them. And this gave him charisma in that sense. So therefore, charisma can come from the most weird sources. And Weber is very dangerous because, okay, what is the German word for leader?
Führer.
Okay. Democracy, real democracy, requires Führer. Führer democracy. That in real democratic, in other words, all democratic societies will have charismatic leaders in them. You can't avoid it. Why? Because this is the way the masses will submit in leadership. And Weber looked at Lenin. Lenin is a charismatic leader.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he a charismatic?
Yes. Oh, very charismatic. Lenin. Very charismatic.
Well, I thought about him in the terms of his physical appearance, but in terms of ideology.
Not only ideology, but also passion and his will, his determinism, his force of will. It's not just looks. It's also.
Yeah, because I just thought of looks, and he was like.
No, looks. Come on, even Hitler's looks are kind of laughable, right? You have to understand, charisma is not about looks. It can be. But that's superficial charisma. Just pure looks will lose. In other words, there's levels of charisma in this sense. Now, and I kind of end on these things. We'll continue this next week. Economic rule, paternal rule. Therefore, I probably won't have the quiz next week. I'll probably have it week 4. I have either a quiz week 3 or week 4. So I'll do it. We'll turn to question of what we call the economic rule, paternal rule, despotic rule, political rule. These are the different varieties, and therefore the connection. We talked about this, tribes and empires, right? The difference of this, just subjectively. But we have to go a little bit more into these types of rules, because this will go into the question of how political rule emerges and how it differs from despotic rule, economic rule, political rule. Okay. So to stop here, we're at our end. I thank you. Take care. See you next week. So I'm not going to give you a quiz next week. It'll be the week 4.